Haha! Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome, of course, to the Wednesday Night Live. Normally, when we would normally live stream. Oh, dearie me, dearie me. Right, exactly when Navarro Media are doing their live stream as well. So, perfect time to stream. But as you always say, where there's a will, there's a way. So, welcome one and all to our wonderful Wednesday night live stream where we'll chat, we'll have a laugh, we'll talk about some things that are going on in the world. But of course, good evening to Craig. It lives. It does indeed. And is incredibly warm in my magnificent Udi. One Angry Pagan, good evening to you. Dave Walker, hello to you. English Viking, good evening to you as well. But yes, good evening to everyone else watching. Like I say, please do remember to click on the like and share button. Like I say, it helps out. Get us more people on the chat, get us more people talking and having a laugh. So, hey, can't say more to that. Tube driver, evening to you. But yes, good evening. Welcome. And oh my, oh my, I don't know if you've heard about this. Eddie, good evening to you as well. I don't know if you've heard about this, but shocker, the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea just declared they're going to postpone their elections. Ben, good evening to you as well. So you may remember a couple of weeks ago, we did a video about the problems that Kim Jong-un is facing. And that is partly because he has his only heir is currently his daughter, as far as we are aware. There are, of course, other members of the Kim family who are alive, who may or may not have male heirs, which now directly threatens Kim Jong-un's place of power. So you may remember when he first came to power, he murdered his uncle with a flamethrower as like one of his very first acts to secure his throne. Recently, he's gone on, from what we are meant to know, a bit of a spree, bit of a uh, bit of a pushing people out the windows in not too subtle a way. Become a bit more paranoid. He's blown up the Korean Unification Monument. He's gone on to talk about how the only way we can now unify Korea is by force, not through peaceful diplomatic processes. He's now supporting Putin, giving them massive production of shell production to help supplement the Russians during their war in Ukraine. Yeah, things aren't looking honestly too well for North Korea at the moment, and it is mostly because Kim Jong-un, massively paranoid, massively worried about his future position. Tube driver, going to talk about the Tin Hat Tories. Oh, we'll be talking about the Tories. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. We'll get to them. Countdown to Power. Good evening to you. One Angry Pagan, just catching up on LBC from last night. Seems Ian Dale lost his patience with his party. I haven't seen that, but maybe I'll catch him later. Yes. The event of the threat is detected. The less spotted BowlerHatMan instinctively disguises himself as a couch. they'll never see me coming as they sit down. Oh. But yeah, weird time for North Korea, and I think it is, honestly, we're going to see, I think, more trouble spots from North Korea, especially if Donald Trump gets into power. If Donald Trump wins in November, Jesus Christ, North Korea going to be a problem. But speaking of recent things. I don't know if you saw this today. Oh, oh, hang on. Got too many tabs open. There we go. Yeah, this came up today. Sixth person charge with spying for Russia in the UK. Well, I suppose it was only a matter of time, but you know, of course they're going to have spies operating in the UK. I think that's very obvious. Um, let's see what happened because this popped up and was like, oh my. So a sixth person has been charged of being part of a suspected spy ring operating in the UK. Tivor Ivano Ivanovich, probably the most Russian name ever. Are you a Russian spy, Timov Arno Alvanovich? No, comrade. How would you know I am a spy for Russia? um, so a 38-year-old Bulgarian national from Acton, West London, was arrested earlier this month and will appear in court on Wednesday. He's accused of conspiring to collect information intended to be directly or indirectly useful to an enemy. That'll be interesting to know what intelligence he was collecting. This is one of the things we'll never know. We'll never know what this intelligence he was collecting actually was. But it's a shame. But it'd be interesting to know what that information was. Craig, bad news for the Tories. It gives the gold embossed reason to investigate current historical Russian activities. Want to bet that the Brexit stuff sticks out to not actively ignored. Oh yeah, always. The whole Brexit referendum should be investigated, and we should look very carefully at what the Russians are trying to do when they are, trying to influence not only our democracy, but a whole other parts of Western democracy. There was a story not that just this week. I thought, no, it was last week. I think it was. France. They'd caught a massive spy ring operating in France, trying to influence European elections. Yeah, this is something else we're gonna have to talk about as well. Yeah, Macron talking about NATO forces potentially going to Ukraine. Yeah, we'll definitely have to talk about that at some point this show as well. Oh, Corvin, good evening to you. Lefty Boater, A up from the other side of the hill. Good evening to you. Hugh, good evening to you as well. But yeah, it's very strange that they've come and done this. So 5 other Bulgarian nationalists, let me get the name of the country right, are due to go on trial in October after being charged with the very same offence. Olin Rozov, 46, of Great Yarmouth, from Norfolk, Drano Dramovich, 43, and Katerina Iovona, 32, of Harrow, Northwest London, Ion Stralov, 32, of Greenford, West London, and Fiona Garber, 29, of Euston, London, all arrested in February of 2023. It alleged the surveillance was being carried out by people and places targeted by Russia between August 2020 and February of 2023. The charges faced by Mr. Anichev alleges that he acted with 5 other defendants and a person named Jan Maskar and others unknown. They say they conspired to obtain, collect, record, publish, or communicate documents or information which was calculated to be or might intended to be directly or indirectly useful to an enemy for the purpose of prejudicial to the safety and the interest of the state. So, yeah, that's a thing that happened. So, Russian spies, they're everywhere. Oh, but yeah, it's not too surprising, honestly. I mean, obviously, countries are going to have spies and intelligence networks, um, especially when we are sort of talking things about what's going on in Ukraine now. It'd be interesting to know what exactly intelligence they were collecting, what exactly that means. Um, but who knows? We'll probably never find out. But yeah, let's take a look at the NATO. So this is it. This is what they were talking about. I can't see this happening if I'm honest. If I'm honest, I cannot see this happening because this would directly bring um, NATO countries into conflict. Yeah, yeah. Russian spies carefully disguising themselves as Tory donors. But greetings to you, Colin Thompson, as always from the Big Apple. Victoria Townsend, good evening to you. Dave W, good evening to you as well. But going back to this, I cannot see this happening. So it was obvious that they were going to reject this because, as far as we can see, this has been pretty much rejected. I can only really see NATO troops being sent in if there is a direct attack on a NATO country, and there is then a response from NATO. I can't see that happening any other way. But we'll see what he's had to say about this. So, several countries, including the US, Germany, and the UK, have ruled out deploying ground troops to Ukraine after French President Emmanuel Macron said that nothing should be excluded. Maybe, yeah, again, I would say that there is a good reason to exclude these things. You may remember at the start of the war, Zelensky was really trying to push to create a no-fly zone that would be patrolled by NATO aircraft. Now, that problem comes in that if one of those aircraft gets shot down by Russia, that then becomes a potential flashpoint. That potential brings us to war. It is the exact same thing with these NATO troops. And I'm not 100% sure what Macron's trying to achieve here, but we'll find out. But that's exactly the same principle. If you put NATO troops in, where exactly are you going to put them in Ukraine? What do you mean? Is this like a post war type thing? Like after the Ukraine war is over, then we put NATO troops in. That I can sort of agree with, because then I don't think Putin is going to be sort of that too much wanting to mess with Ukraine with NATO troops in the country. But we'll see what he's trying to get at here. So Macron said that there was no consensus on sending Western soldiers to Ukraine. Yep, he's right on that. There is no consensus. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has warned that if a direct conflict, there will be direct conflict if NATO deployed troops there. Russian forces have recently made gains in Ukraine, and Kiev has urgently appealed for more weapons. Macron told the conference on Monday evening, we should not exclude that there might be a need for security that then justifies some elements of deployment. But I've told you very clearly that France maintains its position, which is a strategic ambiguity that I stand by. So, yeah, strategic ambiguity. I like that term. I like that term. I'm just being very strategically ambiguital at the moment. Ambiguital. But yeah, I can't see this happening unless there is a direct attack on a NATO country. Maybe after the war, maybe that is a conversation that maybe should be had until we can get, Ukraine in NATO, that can maybe help at that at some point. But maybe Putin might see that as a provocation doing that. So that's something, of course, to bear in mind. I think it's really Macron really trying to put forward the fact that, hey, look, we know that, hey, if Trump wins, the US is going to be bye-bye, hasta luego for the next 4 to 5 years. So Europe has to look out for itself. And I think this is Macron trying to sort of put forward the idea that Europe now has to be more responsible for its own defense and not rely so much on America for its defense. So, in that sense, I do get that. I do get that what he's trying to maybe get across here. So the French leader is speaking in Paris, which is hosting its current crisis meeting in support of Ukraine, which was attended by heads of European state as well as the US and Canada. The full scale invasion launched by Russia, President Vladimir Putin is now in its third year with no signs of the biggest war in Europe since World War II coming to an end soon. Mr. Macron's comments prompted responses from other European and NATO member countries. US President Joe Biden says that the path to victory is providing military aid to Ukraine troops and weapon ammunition they need to defend themselves. The White House statement said, President Biden has been very clear that the US will not send troops to fight in Ukraine, it added. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that there would be no change to the agreed position that no European country or no member state would send troops to Ukraine. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's spokesperson said that the country had no plans for a large-scale military deployment to Ukraine beyond the small numbers of personnel already training Ukrainian forces. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said that Italy's support does not include the presence of troops from European and NATO states in their own territory. Mr. Peskov, on behalf of the Kremlin, called Mr. Macron's suggestion a very important new element, adding that it was absolutely not in the interests of NATO members. In that case, we would not need to talk about the probability, but about the inevitability of direct conflict, he said. Earlier, the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg denied considering about whether troops should be sent to Ukraine, although he insisted that the alliance would continue to support Ukraine, which is not a NATO member. This position has now been echoed by a number of NATO states, including Spain, Poland, and the Czech Republic. Russia has abundance of artillery and has far bigger military force than Ukraine, whose troops are currently depending on modern weapons being provided by Western allies, particularly the US, which again, still being holed up. So on Tuesday, Mr. Biden, congressional leaders urged congressional leaders to approve the £95 billion aid package, which includes $60 billion for Ukraine, during a meeting in the Oval Office. The package has been facing an uphill battle for U.S. House of Representatives. Republican Speaker Mike Johnson has still held firm, insisting that the bill need more broad border reforms first. Mr. Johnson has said the crisis on the US-Mexico border is the priority, and Mr. Biden has already offered to include the reforms in the package, but the Republicans are still holding out. The Democrat leader, Chuck Schumer, said it was most inoffensive Oval Office meeting he'd ever been a part of. The US, by far, is the most largest contributor to the aid of Ukraine, has committed over 4.2 billion euros so far. Germany ranks second on 17.7 billion. At the same time, then followed by the Ukraine, which has provided 9.1 billion of Ukraine aid. Again, we need to get that Ukraine aid over there. I think it is ever more important that they have that aid. I think it's been very clear that part of the reason why they lost ground recently in Avdiivka was because they did not have enough artillery ammunition to be able to hold back the Russian forces. When they do, they can achieve that. Now, that is something that you do see Europe working towards, increasing ammunition production, which is what we want to see. But is it going to be quick enough? Is it going to be fast enough? Are those production lines going to come online fast enough if this keeps on getting held up? Remember, so far, this is 3 months now this bill should have been passed, going into 4 months at the end of this month as well, which, again, providing very big problems for the Ukrainians in the field trying to defend their home country. And the Republicans, the Democrats, should be absolutely hanging the Republicans out to dry on this issue. But for some reason, they're not. And it's absolutely infuriating that they're not on this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can't see who's going to Russia unless it hits us first. Exactly. What does investment forecast in potentially UK Labour they'd look like at the moment? I know Labour had said a bunch of good things in that area. Haven't seen anything about an investment forecast at the moment, so I can't comment on that. Duke Vengeance, Putin will be desperate to take Ukraine because if he doesn't, Ukraine will jump forwards towards Europe and NATO. His chance will be gone, and then he will completely failed. Yep. Like I said, this is what this whole war is about. It is all designed to stop Ukraine going in a Western direction. And that is their biggest problem. What about all the countries invaded by the USA? Shouldn't we send them aid first? Well, they're not being under, direct attack and having war crimes committed on them. Like you know, that the Russians are currently doing. It's also the biggest war currently since World War II on European soil. Um, it's a bit of a problem. Plus, you know, this is what we're going to try to get through. If Putin takes Ukraine and somehow ends up taking more Ukraine, what's to stop him going back? What's to stop him going back, taking more in 5, 8, 10 years? That's what the Ukrainians are constantly worried about. That's what we talk about when we talk about, making it a ceasefire and bringing peace. Getting Ukraine into NATO would be a big turnoff for Russia, taking any more land, but it's sort of impossible. Mostly because, again, it has territorial disputes with Russia and, of course, Transnistria, which was what's stopping it joining NATO in the first place. So, again, big problems there, but not problems that, can't be potentially solved if we're sort of willing to sort of work on them. But it is something that they have asked continuously for future security guarantees. Like, how can we stop, Ukraine being invaded again by Russia? And they are doing this purely for, taking territory, saying this land is ours. This isn't what the US is doing. Maybe you can say, oh, they're doing, etc. But it was a joke to show double standards. Yeah. But yeah. Counter to power. I've seen a few really crazy videos, really, of Trump nutters who are absolutely convinced the UK should stop. The US should stop all aid to Ukraine. Yep. We'll be getting to CPAC later. we'll be doing some CPAC videos. I think in a bit because I think that'll be fun. English Viking. Putin pinky promised that after annexing Crimea. Exactly. He promised this in Georgia. He promised this in not Czechoslovakia, Chechnya as well. He does this time and time again. He says, "Oh, we'll stop the war," prepares, and then comes back later. This is the recurring pattern that always happens, and this is what people just continually just don't get. Because if you enable him here, if he thinks he can take a NATO country, that becomes a problem. That becomes a real problem if he thinks he can take a NATO country. And remember, there are a lot of very similar excuses that Vladimir Putin used to justify invading Ukraine, which would apply to a lot of NATO countries. Of course, Finland, the Baltic states, Poland, Romania. So bear that in mind. Colin Don Thompson, does Labour have a war policy if NATO is at war? I don't know. I don't know if they have such a policy, but it would be interesting to see. We'll have to see when the manifesto comes out what's said about that. But it will be very interesting to see what they have to say about in the area of defence. Duke Vengeance. The American left seem very content to talk about the UK. I would suggest they focus on their own garden because this this position is not looking much better. Oh yeah, the American left really need to sort their stuff out coming up to the election. I am massively worried. If you are a Pony Club member, we've just done a video about this, about how foreign policy in this upcoming American election is going to be an actual issue. It is on the minds of more Americans, more so than ever, when Americans have been polled, and you've got Joe Biden's proposition, which is, America needs to be a strong leader out there in the world, promoting democracy, and being a leader in this, where you've got Trump's, which is like, we should not be a leader, we should not be involved, we should be more isolationist. The worry is that message by Trump could ring very true at the next US elections. And I'll say this now, who do you want as president when it looks to things like Palestine? Do you want Trump or do you want Biden? You should go for Biden every single day of the week, because Trump, if he got in, would just give Netanyahu a complete free hand to do what he wants. There would be no pressure. Be like, yeah, do what you want. Trump wouldn't care. And Ukraine's even more worrying. Ukraine, he would massively throw Ukraine under the bus. And just recently at the NATO summit, there was a Ukrainian member of parliament who asked a Republican, I think it was a senator, saying, hey, we gave up our nukes. Isn't this the case that maybe we should get nukes back to stop Russia doing this again? And remember, this is a perfect example of a country who gave up its nukes in exchange for security guarantees. And then America, when the going got tough, it abandoned its ally. And that is the constant danger for Ukraine. That is the worry. If you think I'm holding my breath until November, people like Zelensky and people in Ukraine and people on the front line are terrified of what could happen in November if Trump wins. Because what do you think happens to all that Ukraine aid? Gone. Trump will implement his, I can finish this war in 24 hours. What's he going to do? Probably throw Ukraine under the bus, given the fact that that's what he did last time during his last presidency, constantly throwing US allies just under the bus. And this is why Emmanuel Macron has said that. Maybe we shouldn't put off putting troops in. If nothing is off the table, then putting NATO troops into Ukraine is a possibility. But shall we say lettuces, shall we say, have a trip to CPAC. Do we want to watch some CPAC? Let's try and find it. Oh yeah, Milei, Argentina's, anarcho-capitalist man, was there at CPAC as well. Not too surprising. Oh, Donald Trump was right. Richard Greendale defends Trump's foreign policy. Ooh, that might be fun to watch. Where's all the Liz Truss ones? Oh, I can find so much from this year's CPAC, but I can't find Liz Truss. Liz Truss. Let's see if we can find her. Let's see if we can find her speech. Oh, here we are. Yep. Yep. CPAC Live. Liz Truss. Is that the full speech? I think it is. Let me just double check. Wow, I didn't realize how long her speech was. She spoke for 2 hours. Oh my word. I didn't realize she did that long a speech. I didn't realize she did that long a speech. Oh, we're speeding this up. We're speeding this up. Oh. Blue Badger, good evening to you. Evening all. When the Ukraine war started, we saw the direction of support. I thought we were going to go to re-enter a war footing again and produce equipment en masse. I was really shocked as it crept on and nothing. Yeah, exactly myself has said. Yeah. Yep, Truss's behavior at CPAC has seriously undermined Sunak. She's made him look weak. Wow, Sunak being a weak prime minister? You don't say. You don't say. Don, Liz Truss, gone blue and on. Was she talking about the pies again? Yeah. Helen, good evening to you. I'd rather listen to Liv Truss. Let's get this up because, oh my word. Here she is. Here she is. Let's we're not going to listen to all of this because I don't know if I can take 2 hours listening to Liz Truss. I just generally don't know if I can just take that long listening to Liz Truss. Help me. Help me. Oh. Right, but let's get this started. Let's see what she said.
Meanwhile, we've seen President Biden asleep at the wheel in the White House. Now, in Britain, we are one of the few countries that still have a conservative government. But the left did not accept that they'd lost at the ballot box. Instead, they've been weaponizing our court system to stop us deporting illegal immigrants. They've been using the administrative state to make sure.
I love that. Weaponizing our court system. What? Yeah. Oh no. The courts have been ruling against the stuff we want to do. Oh dear. This isn't even the worst part of it. This isn't even the worst part of it.
That conservative policies are thwarted. And they've been pushing their woke agenda through our schools, through our campuses, and even in our corporations. Now, I thought that companies in the free market were meant to be about giving people jobs, giving people opportunities, making money, making profits, creating wealth for our country. But no, we've got a new kind of economics now in the West. It's called wokenomics. It's actually about DEI and ESG and all those other three-letter acronyms that mean less opportunities for people and less future for our nation. That's what we are facing now, even in countries with.
Heaven forfend that we should focus on companies making sure that they are, good atmospheres to work in for everyone, regardless of what they happen to be. It's just wokeonomics. Do you think they'll start claiming it's weaponizing the courts when they start getting charged with their crimes? Would not surprise me. One of the things that Labour should absolutely do is look into the past actions of Conservatives, look into all that COVID backlog, look into why there's been all this government waste and corruption that's been reported. We're gonna have a lot of fun in the court system probably in the next couple of years. Yeah. Who knew the judges were the stormtroopers of woke? Oh. Yeah, and the goal of the economy is only profits in ahead. The consensus has been for years that companies have wider responsibilities to the communities that they exist in. Exactly. Is she wearing her fictional dictator outfit again? Not yet. Not yet. She didn't cosplay for this, sadly enough, but I wish she had. It would be slightly more fun, to be honest.
Conservative governments, because of the power of the left and the power of those bureaucracies. And the left are aided and abetted by our enemies overseas. Now, that includes Russia, it includes Iran, and most of all, it includes China, which stands behind all of them. And what those people want to see is they don't want to just compete with countries.
You know what the sad thing about that is? Everyone knows what tankies are. Everyone knows that there has been a section of the left that has sided with the Kremlin on that regard. And the sad thing is about that, I can't even sadly disagree with that. I can't say it's all the left. Unfortunately, we know that tankies exist. We know that they are a thing. We've covered them on this channel. But Iran and China, I generally don't see people on the left siding with Iran. Probably there's a couple of you out there who would probably side with China, just say, oh, they're communist, I'm communist, we should, work together, etc., etc. But even then, I can't really see them working that close together on it. Patrick H, good evening to you. Yeah. That would be hilarious, actually. If he was dressed up as Queenie from Blackadder. That would be quite hilarious if that were to happen.
In the West, they don't want economic competition. They want to undermine our very way of life. They want to undermine our societies. And what they want to do is they want our societies to collapse from within.
Yes. Collapse the society from within by all this woke nonsense, by making sure that we can't break international law. How dare they? How dare they stop us from doing that? 91 leads, hello to you. She wants to bazooka as lefties. Yep. Liz Truss, when you need to bazooka that Veruca. Oh, if I worked in marketing, for that company, I would absolutely be pushing that. Be trying to see if we could push that as some sort of bizarre speech. It would not surprise me if you could do that, or at least take the mick out of her for saying that. Yep. To the left, there must be some sort of super sentient amorphous blob that can just do anything about thinking about it. Yep, exactly. Exactly. Let's continue.
Because we loathe ourselves, because we hate ourselves. That's what they are trying to achieve.
We loathe ourselves because we hate ourselves.
These regimes have actually been enabled by us. over the past few decades. You know, we let China into the World Trade Organization, and we've allowed them to undermine free markets with their unfair practices. We've almost allowed Iran to develop a nuclear weapon, and we've enabled Vladimir Putin.
Why have we let Iran almost engineer a nuclear weapon? Why did that happen? I'm sure it has nothing to do with Donald Trump, who ripped up the Iran deal that was going actually quite well. The deal that completely removed any need to go to war with Iran because it allowed inspectors in. Iran said we wouldn't, focus on development of nuclear weapons. They got their money back. We sorted all that. But what happens? Along comes Trump, rips up the deal. Now what? So Iran goes back to developing a nuclear weapon.
Putin by not taking action early enough when he could be stopped. That is what has been going on. Instead of projecting strength, and we know that dictators...
Wait. So we could have stopped Putin earlier. She just made the claim that we could have stopped Putin earlier. Okay, at what point could we have stopped Putin? Because remember, Trump was in office for some of those years where we could have, conservatives could have stopped Putin. Did Trump do anything to Putin? No, he did nothing. Did absolutely nothing to him. That's not a very good statement coming from Trump. Sorry, from Truss. Sorry, not Trump. Yep, conspiratorial claptrap from a very bitter and vengeful Truss. Oh, absolutely. Tube driver wears a tinfoil hat. Yep. Trump was a Putin puppet, so of course he's never going to do anything against him. Or shall we say, at least an admirer enough of him. So we'll see what else she's got to say about this.
There's only respond to strength. We projected weakness. And that is what is being projected from the White House at the moment. And I'm afraid there are too many conservatives who have gone along with some of these left-wing ideas. Now, in Britain, we call them chinos, conservatives in name only. I think in America, we call them rhinos, Republicans in name only. But it's...
What? Chinos? Chinos? What? I have never heard that before now. I have never, ever heard that. I've heard the term rhino before. I've heard the term rhino. I have never heard the term chino before. Conservative in name only. That's a new one to add to the lexicon. I need this now, Chino. She's just making stuff up. Oh, absolutely is. Why is she speaking like that? Well, I have sped her up because it's a 2-hour speech almost, so we've got to get through some of this. Yep. Words are just lettuce bashed together. Yep. Yep, counts power. I've literally never heard anyone say Chino. I've been following politics for years. So you're just making it up. Exactly. I've never heard of this either. Where did this come from? Where did this come from all of a sudden? And is this going to be a word? I'm going to watch it now. I'm going to watch out for people saying chino now to see if this enters into to political lexicon of the UK political language. It'll be very weird if it does. Will the letters get a turn to speak, or would that be too sensible for the room? Well, that'd be far too sensible. Don't be silly, Helen. Letting the lettuce speak. The lettuce would speak far too much sense. Oh.
It's the same tendency. It's people who think, I want to be popular. I don't want to upset people. I don't want to look like a mean person. I want to attend nice dinner parties in London or Washington, DC. I want my friends to like me. I don't want to cause trouble. But what those people are doing is they are compromising.
Wow. Being nice because you want people to like you. Wow. But instead, what you need to not give in. You need to be double down. You need to be absolutely ruthless. Thank you for sending it here. The US gave you Oprah and The Office. Whoa, Colin. Whoa. The US did not give us The Office. I think you'll find that's the other way around. Yeah, I think we gave you The Office. Yeah, David Brent will have something to say about that. Yeah, when were the Tories ever nice? Very, very true.
And they are triangulating, and they are losing the argument. And I've got a message.
They are triangulating. God, this is something else I've never heard before. As someone who has spoken English for as long as I have, I've never heard anyone use the phrase triangulate. You know, by all you being here, you are in reality triangulating Rubiconly of your Rubik's Cube mentality coming onto here and oblonging your perceptiveness. All I'm saying is, look, Pentagon power, boys. Pentagon power. Nothing, just get the Yorkshire Rose out. Put some power out. Oh.
You can't triangulate with terrorists. You can't compromise with communists.
I love that. You can't triangulate with terrorists. What was the old anti-piracy? Oh, yeah. You wouldn't triangulate a DVD, would you? Would you triangulate a DVD? I know. I've covered this speech a lot already, and honestly, seeing it in person is something different. It's completely something different. I mean, honestly, this is a 2-hour speech. What stuff got missed? Like, what nuggets of wisdom did we miss from Trust that was not picked up on? PE, good for you to be with us today. Happy for you to triangulate with us in today.
You have to fight for what you believe in. You have to fight for the conservative values. You have to fight for the conservative values that you hold dear, and I am prepared to do that. I will fight, even if it's not popular, even if people say they don't like it, because I know it's right. Individual liberty, families and people making decisions, not the government. freedom and free enterprise and capitalism.
But wouldn't those individuals get to decide what the government does? You know, like in a democracy? Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely been taking some Penny Mordaunt lessons. Absolutely. That's very true. Yeah, to be Pythagoras about this, let's triangulate. Technically, it's just a 5-minute speech spread over 2 hours, punctuated by buzzwords that she just doesn't understand. Yeah, I think it's buzzwords that she's been fed on this. And what's funny about this, if you look for how many people are in the crowd, not too many people in the crowd. She was giving this speech to a practically empty hall.
And most of all, the fact that our countries, the United Kingdom and the United States, are exceptional. We are great nations.
Got to get that exceptionalism in there.
To have our history talked down, and I refuse to have our values talked down. We need to stand up for those values, and we need to stand up for them every day. And I'm afraid, my friends, we are in difficult times. And I very much
triangulate more, Liz.
Triangle. More active in
triangulate, Liz.
Unless we are prepared to fight this battle, even if it's difficult, even if it's uncomfortable, that Western civilization is doomed. Now, I've written a book, which is coming out very soon, and you can pre-order it. But I've written a book, and it's called 10.
I will be getting that book. You can help subsidize that cost if you would like by donating to the stream. But I will be getting 10 Years to Save the West, because oh my word, what a fun read that's going to be. Is that canned applause? Oh no, that's very real applause. There was just so few people there. There was just so few people there when you look at the, shall we say, the other side of the camera.
Years to Save the West. And I've written it based on my experiences as a minister in the UK government and ultimately as Prime Minister. And it's a warning. It's a warning to you in the United States, and it's a warning to all of us across the free world, because I went into government and put myself forward to be leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister because I believed our country needed to be turned around. I saw our growth wasn't high enough, that we hadn't sorted out immigration. I wanted to deal with those issues. And I put forward a range of policies, and those policies got support. They got support from our party members, from our base. And the policies were cutting taxes, cutting the size of government, and reining in the administrative state.
Cutting taxes, yes. I can't think of anything that she wanted to do policy-wise, reining in the administrative state. That's certainly a new story to the Truss fiction that's been added now too. So yeah, that's a new fun addition that we've now got to disprove, because obviously her tax cuts were so underfunded that she crashed UK gilts, which the pension industries were heavily invested in, which caused them to go into an absolute freefall, which, according to industry insiders from the pension industry, there were big pension companies that were literally an hour away from going bankrupt if the Bank of England had not stepped in. So thank you very much, Liz Truss, for doing that. You know, what a brave person you are doing, standing up for conservative values and crashing the economy. And I've reiterated this again. If there is any like conservative YouTuber out there who thinks that like Liz Truss did a good job, or that she's some sort of like unsung hero, please invite me on your show. I will go over Liz Truss's 49 days in office and tell you just how bad it was and what an absolute laughingstock Liz Truss is considered to be. I will very happily do that.
Making sure our borders were secure and we were deporting illegal immigrants. Making sure that people could start a family by building more houses and having cheaper energy. I wanted us to get fracking in the United Kingdom. You know that fracking has lowered energy bills here and it's made America less dependent on foreign powers. And that's what I wanted to do in the UK. And what I also wanted to do.
The US was already very not dependent on foreign energy. The US has massive natural energy reserves. Massive. So it was already not dependent on, foreign imported energy. It's also a good excuse to say, well, if you believe that, why didn't the UK invest in offshore wind, which would not have put us in a bad position as we are now? Just saying, Truss. Just saying.
Was get rid of all the EU laws off our statute books. Now, you may think that we voted for Brexit back in 2016, and I'm sure you're going to be surprised to hear that the vast majority of those EU laws are still on our statute books. It's a bit like getting divorced and still living in the same house as your ex-husband. Now, I don't believe that EU regulations were going to drive the British economy, so I wanted to get rid of them. So these are the policies that I put forward.
If you did get rid of those EU laws and regulations, this would create huge barriers to trade and more trade friction, which would mean even some goods and services UK businesses would not be able to trade into the EU for. I'm sure that would have made the UK economy work wonderfully well if Truss had done that. Oh, Blue Badger. I've heard a Conservative councillor saying Chino. I asked what it meant, and they told me, and I asked why they said had the H in it. Yeah, I think they're dropping the H. I think the H in Chino is silent. But then again, I think this is something that Liz Truss has just made up on the spot or been given to make up, because she's trying to appeal to the American conservatives here. Yeah. This is Liz Truss, speeds up playback. This is Liz Truss on math. Can you slow it down to just 75% of the original just for a laugh? Well, go on then, Billy. Go on then, just for you. I will slow it down.
And I believe if all of those policies had been implemented, Britain would be stronger and we'd be in a better position now. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect person or I did everything exactly right.
You did absolutely nothing right, dear. You did absolutely nothing right. Oh, anyway, let's speed it back up.
But I face the most almighty backlash for those conservative policies that I tried to put in place. From the usual suspects in the media, from the usual suspects in the corporate world, but also from people that were meant to work for the government.
What about the markets? What about the gilt bond buying market? Why aren't you mentioning those? Because I think those were probably the biggest indicators who said, yeah, those policies aren't going to go well. Can you speed her up? She sounds like an angry chipmunk. Yeah, we'll be going back to full speed. This is Liz Truss on the good leaf. Yep, Lefty Boater. This is Liz Truss drunk. Because English Viking, no change at all.
The Office of Budget Responsibility, the Bank of England, these organisations sought to undermine the policies. Even the
How? Again, Office for Budget Responsibility, it is its job to publish an independent assessment of what the government plans to do. You did not like what the Office of Budget Responsibility had to say, but that is their job. That is what they are there for. The Bank of England, the only thing it can do is raise or lower interest rates. That is roughly its power. In what way did the Bank of England not do that? You know? And again, any American out there who has a right-wing podcast who thinks that Liz Truss is like this amazing savior, oh, please let me come on your show and burst your bubble. Please do. Yeah. Good point. We need a lettuce light. Like the one used in Batman, anytime Liz Truss talks. Oh, we do. We absolutely do. That would make an amazing transition. Shine the lettuce light. Or something I can put up in the corner, like up here, or something like that. when it happens. Yeah, very true. Perhaps a few British farmers could give Liz a testimonial. I think the lettuce would probably get a better testimonial than Liz Truss.
IMF intervened, and even President Biden intervened to have a go at my policies. Now, can you imagine being attacked on
Yes,
your
because you were crashing the economy.
Talk about offensive. But the reality is, with that level of antagonism, I simply was not able to implement those policies, which I believe, and Conservative Party members believe, would have delivered for our country.
And they would have crashed the economy. You were literally crashing the economy. Just keeps on lying to herself, giving this her own interpretation of this fiction that she just feeds herself again and again and again.
And frankly, I didn't have enough support from Conservative MPs as well in order to be able to do that. So this is the lesson that I have learned.
Yes.
I've learned.
Because they saw your stuff. They went, oh, okay, we'll give this a chance, see if it works. They then saw how much this was crashing the economy. There was an almighty revolt to say, right, Katang's going to go. In comes Jeremy Hunt. Truss still determined to continue and follow on with their plans. So at that point, the Conservative MPs were right, time to get rid of Truss. And out she went. Very, very quickly.
But it's not enough just to have the right policies. It's not even enough to get the position of power that you need to deliver those policies, because Conservatives are now operating in what is a hostile environment. And we essentially need a bigger bazooka in order to be able to deliver. And I think we have got to challenge the institutions themselves. We've got to challenge the system itself.
We need a bigger bazooka. Bear in mind, we're only 10 minutes into this, so I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to skip ahead to 41 minutes. Oh, and it looks like their audio cut out. Ladies and gentlemen, right-wing audio. Right-wing audio when the audio cuts out. One can only fathom the amount of wisdom we are missing out on this. Does it come back though? That's the question. Oh, she's getting a round of applause of something. She said something. Oh, she said something. Oh, there she goes. And oh, yeah. Oh, she's back. Still no audio. Still no audio. So who knows what she's saying? Who knows what we missed out on her saying here? Again, I would love to hear the full thing on this. Or is this just a speech repeated? Did they have her come out and do the same speech like 2 or 3 times over? Or are they just repeating the speech?
My friends, it's fantastic to be here and get the injection, the fresh injection of Conservative energy. We need it. We need it very much in Europe. We need it very much in the United Kingdom.
That was her speech. I thought this was over 2 hours. No, it was about 12 minutes. Oh, never mind. But yeah, that was that was Liz Truss at CPAC. Oh, let's try and find some more CPAC stuff to laugh at, because honestly, yeah, that's kind of fun. Because there should be plenty more stuff in around here. Let's find that guy who was talking about the foreign policy, saying that Donald Trump was right. Oh, unless you want to watch Nigel Farage. What do you want to watch? Do you want to watch Nigel Farage at CPAC, or do you want to watch this other guy who said that Trump's foreign policy was right? Show of hands in chat, please. 1 for Nigel, 2 for other guy. Three, 1, 3, Farage, none. Let's see Farage. Where's her with Steve Bannon? Farage, but keep messing with my playback speed. If you can do filters, toss those on too. From what I've seen of US politics, everything Trump did would have made his own cons happy. Blow up the world plus 2 years later. Probably very true. So yeah, let's go then. Here we go. Donald Trump. Not Donald Trump. This is Nigel Farage at CPAC. Here he is. Hold on. Let's put it down to normal speed first. See what we can get. There we go. Let's see what he has to say.
Hello, CPAC! Wow, what a pleasure it is to be here. Thank you for that very, very warm welcome. It feels to me like the Atlantic just got a little bit narrower. And that's because I always feel at home when I come here. Now, since my last visit to CPAC, I've been engaged in a new fight, a new battle, and it's one that we all need to be aware of. We know that the woke corporate culture.
The what? The woke corporate culture. What? That's bizarre in itself. But anyway, there you go.
Is keen on cancelling people. And this includes our banking system.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Still crying about being ejected from one of the most privileged banking houses in the world. Still cannot get over this. He still cannot get over this. I can't believe it. Yeah. Good evening, Kevin. Most US audiences wondering why Parker from Thunderbirds is talking to them about trumping in public.
And so in June of last year, I got a letter from my bank. And despite the fact I'd been with them for 43 years, I got a letter from the bank saying, we are closing your accounts. And I thought, well, I'm not very happy about this, but it won't be a problem.
And remember what the independent regulator that was assigned to this said, because Farage won't mention this. The independent regulator found that Coutts was well within its rights to stop doing business with Nigel Farage because he did not meet the minimum wealth requirement for that particular bank account to bank with them. Do you think he's going to mention this to his audience? Do you think he's going to mention that to them? I don't think so. And we followed this every single update that happened about Coutts. We followed this right from when he first started talking about it, right from where he started banging the drum about it, right up until that final report came out. And it said Coutts did nothing wrong. It was well within its rights to do what it did. Farage was wrong. They were in the right to do that. Tough. Yeah, it's still whining about them. Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, I'd give Farage a letter telling him to bugger off after I'd been with him to 4.3 minutes.
Because I'll just go and get another bank account. Only to be refused a bank account by 10 other banks.
He has not provided any evidence. He has not provided any evidence that he was blocked from having a bank account. Not only that, but NatWest, who own Coutts, said that he could have a bank account with them. So not only was he offered a bank account with NatWest after Coutts said, we don't want to do business with you anymore, but he has never once offered any evidence that these other 10 banks shut him down. He has never produced any evidence to that. Any evidence whatsoever. So that's a lie because he's never offered any evidence. Until he actually produces any evidence, I'm just going to keep on calling and saying that that's a lie.
I'm beginning to think, well, maybe these people are doing their best. to close me down, to force me out of the country. And I managed to get a copy of the internal documents as to why they'd made this decision. They said that I did not align with their values because I dared to question net zero. I dared to think leaving the European Union was a good thing.
Well, actually, if you read those internal documents, it has nothing to do with his stance on net zero. Nothing to do with his stance on leaving the EU. It was all to do that they kind of, thought he was a bit racist and that they didn't align with those values, and they were a bit not wanting to do business with him. So when his mortgage came up due again, they said, sorry, we don't know what to do business with you anymore. The independent review found that Coutts was well within their rights to do that. And bear in mind, would not surprise me if the next time this happened, Coutts decided to do it again. And this time, I don't think they'll be taking him back. I like that. Post-divorce, was Nigel's account net zero? Very, very true.
I dared to question globalism, but they wrote in their notes, don't worry, he won't go public on this.
No, I'm pretty sure they didn't. I do not. Again, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember when we covered this, they never once said that. They were not worried about Farage going public with this. Again, building his own victim complex mythos there.
Because he'll be too embarrassed to do so. Well, I tell you what, folks, they picked on the wrong bloke, didn't they? So fight back I did, and fight back hard. I managed to get 2 chief executive officers sacked.
One which might be, well, potentially suing Mr. Farage. I don't know if they're going to go ahead with that or not, but that would be kind of funny if they did. That would be funny. But we'll see what happens on that front. But I think it would have happened already if they were going to do that.
The share price of Britain's biggest bank fell by 35%. And we have promises from government that legislation will change. But you see, I was fortunate.
And no legislation has changed, by the way. But there you go.
In the sense that I'm big enough and ugly enough, and I've got a voice, and I was able to defend myself. But there are so many others out there who don't have that voice, but who find themselves being discriminated against by a system, a corporate system.
And what happened, per se, to all that money that Farage took off the back of this? What happened to all that donation money that said he was going to take on banks on behalf of the little guy, that he was going to be a champion in their corner? Because I'll tell you what, I ain't seen any of that happen. I have not seen a single thing of that happen. What happened to all that money that Farage raised for that? Maybe maybe someone should ask Nigel about all that money. What happened to all that? That might be a bit of a embarrassing.
That is now in bed with globalist left-wing politics. And I was fighting this not just for me, I was fighting this for hundreds of thousands of other Britons who've been closed down by the banks.
And you have done nothing. You, again, putting yourself as the champion of these people of having their bank accounts closed down. He has done nothing to help those people. He raised a ton of money off the back of all this stuff. And he has not done a single thing. Where's all the money gone, Nigel? Where's all the money gone?
And of course, that's relevant here too. Donald Trump just the other week spoke about the scourge of debanking, only to be met on Saturday Night Live, which I'm sure is a very favorite program of CPAC attendees. And some idiot on Saturday Night Live says, what is debanking? Does it really exist? So we find on the other side denial at everything we try to expose and raise. But I am hopeful.
Because you spun an absolute web of nonsense about this whole debanking thing that you'd said. And when the final independent report came out, you'll notice Nigel had nothing to say about this, but the final report said Coutts was well within their rights to do what they did. Farage did not meet the wealth requirement to continue to be a customer at Coutts because it is a very, very rich person's bank. You know, you don't go up there and say, I'm just putting 100 quid in. No, you walk up there and you put something like a couple of billion in there. That's it. That's the type of bank that it is. But no, the independent report was very clear. Coutts was well within its right to do what it did. Farage was offered an account by NatWest. He refused it. He has never shown any evidence of these other 10 banks that refused him in a bank account. He raised all this money to help fight for these other people who had been debanked. Doesn't seem to have done anything to help any of these supposed people who have been debanked. So what happened to all that money? I highly suspect it went on this new suit he got for CPAC.
I'm optimistic that we can get that pendulum to swing back, because still in all of our countries there is a majority for common sense. We might not see that common sense if we watch CNN or read the New York Times or listen to many on Capitol Hill, but it's the same in every country. You get outside the capital cities and you find a clear, solid majority for common sense. But that shift will not happen on its own. It will only happen if we, in the populist movement, make it happen by getting people to vote for our candidates in numbers that we've never seen before. And we can do this, and we will do this, and however downhearted you get, never ever forget that in the end, right through the history of mankind, and it may take time, but in the end, good always triumphs over evil.
Literally. Yeah, Farage is one to use that line. And I want to point out something that Farage has is somewhat right in this, because obviously he built UKIP, this very, very core ex-conservative base. And that's what he built. That's what he used to do it. He had millionaire backers to help him fund and to run these elections so that he could constantly do this again and again and again. And Farage became a big populist threat. He became the Tory party nightmare. They are still having nightmares about him now that he might come back at the next general election. You know, he even said, I might even be the next Tory party leader. So, yeah, in a way, it is unfortunately sort of right in that regard that they do get out to vote, and they do get out to vote very often. And that is the call to, once again, always go out and vote. No matter what, make sure you go out and you vote. What's this? Mitch McConnell has announced he's stepping down. Oh, about time. About time if that's the case. Yep, there it is. Mitch McConnell to step down as Senate Republican leader in November. Wow. Talk about end of an era. Talk about end of an era. And the question is, who steps up to take his place? Because at the moment, the Republican Party is an absolute mess. That is going to open up a massive can of worms for the Republicans. An absolute massive can of worms. That is going to be massively so. That's going to make things very interesting. Definitely for sure in the Senate. And you've seen the problems the Republicans are having in the House. That might be about to hit the Senate as well. Oh. Anyway, yeah, we've heard Farage's rhetoric, still doing the victim shtick for Coots. Did you say he was going to be replacing him? The Kentucky politician said it was time to move on to address the Senate on Wednesday. McConnell said he was proving key to passing conservative policies and elected Republicans to Capitol Hill. Fell out of favor with Donald Trump. The ex-president said he wanted him out as leader. McConnell, 82, suffered several health scares in recent times, although staff has said nothing to do with the decision. I'm pretty sure it is. He's twice frozen when speaking during press conferences in the past year, and he suffered a concussion after falling in a hotel in Washington. The Kentucky senator said in his speech that he would serve out his term, which ends in January of 2027, but he would work, quote, from a different seat in the chamber. I have still enough gas in my tank to thoroughly disappoint my critics, he said. Over his career, McConnell's proven himself to be one of the most effective Republican leaders in the Senate, partly because because he could alternate between a political hardball and willingness to compromise when he saw fit. In his speech, McConnell reflected on his decades in the Senate, his age, his family. He dedicated a large portion of his speech to the importance of U.S. global leadership, despite the radical shift his party has gone under from Donald Trump's isolationist popular rhetoric. He said, I know many of the politics of my party was taking them over in time. I have my faults and misunderstanding, but politics is not one, he said. As I said, I believe more strongly than ever that America's global leadership is essential, preserving the shining city on the hill that Ronald Reagan discussed. Mr. Trump's leadership has changed views amongst many other Republicans. He has also repeated the false claim that he won the 2020 election, a point of contention between him and McConnell, emphasized his desire to crack down on immigration. So, yeah, McConnell's gone. That's going to have a big impact. That is going to have a very, very big impact. Yeah. You can burn all that massive political capital to make sure that Trump doesn't become president. It's not wrong. It's not wrong. But yes. So with that, well, we've been over for sort of an hour and a half now. So, thank you very much for watching this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for a another Wednesday Night Live. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure to join you here this evening. We'll see you on Saturday, hopefully, weather depending, for a good morning walk. So come and join us for that, as we'll be discussing more of what's happened this week. So, like I say, please do remember to click on the like and share button on your way out. Like I say, links down below to help support the channel, Patreon page, One Off Nation link, Pony Club, Buy Me Coffee link, etc. All down below. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.